Alrighty then, my roll chums, it is I, Daniel. You may call me the Pop Culture Dude, and happy belated New Year. It is now 2021, and I know people are saying, hallelujah, get out here 2020, screw you, you suck. Finally I'm free for 2021. Kind of, but not really. But technically, you read the title of this video, and this is going to be something new that I want to make my own top 5 most anticipated movies in 2021. And 2020, there hasn't been that much exciting movies just because of the pandemic, especially where I talk about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie a lot in my channel, but been there, done that. We're talking about what's the movies that I'm looking forward to 2021, and I'm going to do it top 5 style on WatchMojo.com. I'm just kidding, but we're not getting to that. But anyway, let's get to the list. Number 5, Uncharted, June 16, 2021. If you don't know what's the concept of Uncharted, it's based on a video game franchise where it's mostly like a navigation, traveling, exploring type of video game that features Nathan Drake and also his partner Victor Sullivan as they're going on quests, but also is a very complex video game franchise series. So what I'm basically saying is, like Sonic, Uncharted is a video game movie adaptation, and now Sony, who's the developers of the video game, but Sony Pictures, the movie studio, has been developing a Uncharted movie for many years, since 2010. Yeah, it's been that long. And honestly, for me, I've been a late viewer and a late fan to the Uncharted video game franchise. I gotta give props to my cousin who introduced me the first 4 video games before this movie, this live action movie, is gonna come out. And technically, what's interesting about this particular Uncharted movie and why I'm interested in it, I played the video games like a little bit with my cousin, but in a way that it's pretty cool that this is gonna be like a prequel to the first 4 games, even though they're gonna take inspirations from the 4th game, but we don't know pretty much for sure. But basically, it's an origin story. But who's gonna star in the movie? None other than Peter Parker, aka Spider-Boy himself. Tom Holland's gonna play Nathan Drake, since it's a younger version of the character instead of just a fully grown adult like in the video games. And guess what? Even Tom Holland actually has the approval of Nathan Drake's voice actor from the video games, Nolan North. Hey, what do you know? You have Spider-Man and Deadpool teaming up. Well, not really, because Nolan North is the voice of Deadpool and not Ryan Reynolds, but for those of you who get my joke, you are a culture person, but if you're not, do more of your research, you lazy bums. But other than that, you even got Mark Wahlberg, who's going to be part of this movie, who was originally going to play Nathan Drake, but he's like, oh, he's too old. He's going to play like Victor Sullivan, who's basically the partner, and we see on-set photos where basically we're like, wait, he's not going to have the mustache, but his script is like, yay, he has the mustache, like the character, since this is a beloved video game franchise, and since they're going to adapt it to a movie, who knows, Sony wants to make sequels, because, you know, Sony loves to build making money for franchises, so you never know. But they only just show us on-set photos, no trailer yet. All we just know it's coming on July 16, 2021. Hopefully when the pandemic's hit, because Sony wants to release their big budget movies in theaters and not streaming services like what Warner Brothers and HBO Max are doing. But anyway, that's number 5. Anyway, number 4, another Sony production, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So, number 4. This awaited sequel of the box office hit in October 2018, the first Venom movie, which is basically Sony's experiment ideal to make their own cinematic universe, but with Spider-Man characters, even though they make a sharing arrangement with Marvel and Sony to share the character of Spider-Man that you've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But they want to branch out with their own Spider-Man characters, but with villains. And Venom, who's a fan favorite after the backlash of Spider-Man 3, like, hey Parker, ooh, my spices are tingling, if you know what I'm talking about. But we're ignoring that Venom. We're talking about Tom Hardy's Venom. Anyway, the reception of the first Venom movie, it was heavily criticized by a bunch of critics. There's some people that actually adore it. For my personal opinion, Venom was not a cinematic masterpiece. Like, the plot is pretty weak, the villain's pretty weak, the supporting characters are bland, except for the main star himself, Eddie Brock, and Venom, played by the great Oscar-winning actor Tom Hardy. And technically, I think he did the role for Venom justice, and at least Venom was way better than what Spider-Man 3 handled. But other than that, I say the first movie was so bad that it's good. But why am I looking forward to the sequel, Let There Be Carnage? Well, it's a stupid title, but you've seen in the title, it's Carnage. If you don't know who Carnage is, he's like a red offspring symbiote that is basically a more violent, maleficent reflection of Venom, but except he's with the red spawn symbiote, which is the alien goo from space, but it's more like the offspring host to this serial killer murderer, Cletus Cassidy, in the Spider-Man comic books. And by the end credits scene of the first Venom movie, he's none other than played by Woody Harrelson, and I cannot take it seriously, including the on-set photos where he's roaming around with his new haircut, with less of his Ronald McDonald wig, and eventually looking less like a 40-year-old Logan Paul on camera. Even though it's exciting to see Carnage to see in the big screen, we don't know if the Venom sequel will be forced to be PG-13, where it tries to be edgy but still try to be fun, like the unbalanced tone that the first Venom movie had, but we don't know for sure. But if they want to go R-rated with Carnage, that's going to scare the kiddies. If you're going to make Spider-Man references, since Marvel and Sony make a deal where Spider-Man's name and the character's presence could be mentioned in both Sony's spin-off films, but also the Marvel collaboration with Spider-Man in a way, so we don't really know. But gosh dang it, I can't take Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy seriously, because he's going to be like, "Hi, Eddie. You see that I was hunting some zombies with Gwen Stacy and Lex Luthor in the movie Zombieland, which is made by the director who made Venom. And I once killed an ape whose name's Caesar, until then eventually I just shot myself, just because if you won't leave me out of this cell, and I will, there's gonna be cringe. I need to find my Twinkie, that spongy yellow bastard." Anyway, all jokes aside, I just can't take Woody Harrelson's Cletus Cassidy seriously, because he's too easy to make fun of. No offense. But what's interesting about this upcoming Venom sequel is who's directing it. Andy Serkis, like what I mentioned. And Andy Serkis is no stranger to motion CGI. He's the one that voices Gollum for Lord of the Rings, "My precious." And he's the one that voices Caesar for Planet of the Apes, "Apes together, strong." And technically he plays Snoke in Star Wars The Last Jedi and Force Awakens, which the fanbase was unhappy with his concluding arc. And he was Ulysses Klaue in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But ever since he made his Netflix Jungle Book dark adaptation that he's been directing, that he also performed as well, I could definitely picture how would Andy Serkis direct the Venom sequel, Venom Let There Be Carnage. So it definitely makes a lot of sense. Hopefully Sony doesn't interfere the director's filmmaking edition, which they've done it many times with Spider-Man 3, both the Amazing Spider-Man films, and even Venom itself. And that's why we're saying release the director's cut. So basically I'm just saying, hopefully it doesn't suck, and hopefully it just becomes a little better than the sequel. And hopefully if they're gonna make a third Venom movie, make it based on Maximum Carnage, and then that will be a fitting subtitle. Just saying. Anyway, let's move on to number 4. Number 3, another Sony production again, even though I have a love-hate relationship with the studio, but let's move along. Number 3, Ghostbusters Afterlife. What is interesting about Ghostbusters Afterlife? After the most controversial movie, Ghostbusters 2016, with a female-led reboot that has no continuity with the first 2 Ghostbusters films, we definitely know for sure that they're making another Ghostbusters movie, but this time it's a continuation of the first and second movie in the 80s. Why? Because the first 2 Ghostbusters movies was directed by Ivan Reitman, and then eventually his son is eventually going to direct Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is finally the long continuation to continue after the first 2 films. Because Ghostbusters 3, if you don't know the story, you can look it up on YouTube, look it up on Google, the story why Ghostbusters 3 never happened. Because of the scripts, Bill Murray doesn't want to reprise his role as Peter Venkman, even though it's a fan favorite role. But after that leads to the female lead reboot, which makes the whole internet mad about basically some political agendas and basically ruining your nostalgia, gender swapping. That's why it was the most controversial movie in 2016, with a bunch of dislikes on YouTube. But for Ghostbusters Afterlife, I'm very interested from it, just because I like the concept that it's taking more like a supernatural thing. Reminds me of Stranger Things. That's funny, because you got Finn Wolfhard, who's playing one of the new Ghostbusters, and I guess they watched that Stranger Things episode where he is. But other than that, it's great that you're focusing on a new generation of Ghostbusters, which definitely works for a long-awaited sequel for a franchise that hasn't been alive or active for many decades ago. And now it says this concept features about Finn Wolfhard and this young girl who's played by Makina Grace, featuring Paul Rudd, freaking Ant-Man for crying out loud, being the teacher. But now they're understanding that there's supernatural ghosts roaming around in their small town as they're being moved to some sort of the countryside, since they had to move out the city. But what's so interesting is that Makina Grace's character is connected to one of the older Ghostbusters, and it's Egon Spengler, who's played by Harold Ramis. Rest in peace. But technically, there's possible rumors that we are going to get the original cast back. They won't have big roles, but they definitely will have an appearance. The trailers have been very silent for that. But we see the Ecto-1, and then we got some ghosts, we got the proton packs, we got the mold, there's references to the original movie. Like, I feel like this is going to be a true, proper Ghostbusters movie that's filled with effort, love, and care for the franchise. They're just milking the heck out of it just to, you know, make the fan base mad, you know what I mean? So the trailer looks pretty amazing, and I'm definitely looking forward for what Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to bring to us on June 11th, 2021. And same thing for Venom Let There Be Carnage will be released on June 25th, 2020. Why? Because Sony wants to make money. So let's continue on with number 2. Since we went to 5, 4, 3, and 2, number 2, I talk about this a lot in my channel, but let's get straight into it. Number 2, and it's a Warner Brothers production, not Sony this time, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Yes, another long-awaited sequel after Ghostbusters Afterlife. Space Jam: A New Legacy is a long-awaited sequel to the 1996 film that features Michael Jordan and that killer soundtrack. I believe I can fly, everybody get out, it's time to slam down. Who is? You can't get the soundtrack out of the head because that's the power of the 90s, yeah. But also, it's cool to see the Looney Tunes on the big screen for those of you who grew up in the 90s with Michael Jordan on the big screen. But it's really awesome. And then we have never got a Looney Tunes movie since Looney Tunes Back in Action, which I called an underrated masterpiece. And I think that's the better Looney Tunes movie. Don't at me, Space Jam fans. But what's interesting about this Space Jam sequel, A New Legacy, it's going to feature LeBron James or Spike Cranberry. But also what's different is you're going to get the same Looney Tunes characters I made videos in the past talking about because it is one of my most anticipated movies. It's number 2. But this plot is going to be completely different. There's going to be no monsters. They're not going to be jamming out space. That LeBron James and Bugs Bunny has to go to the Warner Bros. Studio lot to find their lost son because there's this AI, artificial intelligence villain who's played by Don Cheadle who's in control. And what's awesome about it, you have the Looney Tunes crossing over to iconic Warner Brothers characters or scenes from the movie. And what's so awesome about it is the fact that there's rumors that you're getting Joker, Pennywise, the Mask, Hogan, and you got the Wicked Witch, and you got maybe some Harry Potter characters, I don't know, but this is going to be one of the most biggest Warner Brothers crossovers since Ready Player One, which is very ironic. But other than that, I'm excited for that for July 16, 2021. And yes, you have the option to watch that movie in theaters or on HBO Max, so we don't know for sure. But I like that they keep teasing us with the Xbox One promotion and eventually some images, the Toon Squad jerseys to get that sweet, sweet merch. So I'm definitely looking forward for Space Jam: A New Legacy because I love the Looney Tunes. Can't wait to see them again when it comes out on July 16, 2021, which is the exact same release date as the Uncharted movie. So that's a double win. So that's all we know for sure. But before we get to our number 2 pick, I'm going to mention some few honorable mentions right now down below. And let's get straight to it. And now, we get to number 1, and the number 1 most anticipated movie of 2021 is the untitled Spider-Man Far From Home sequel, aka Spider-Man 3. No, not that Spider-Man 3, move aside. There you go, this Spider-Man 3. So, the upcoming Spider-Man film, this third installment of Tom Holland's MCU franchise. It's funny that I mentioned Tom Holland and Sony and Venom and Spider-Man a lot, but I don't know, it's because I just love Spider-Man as a whole. But what's interesting about this, I'm not the biggest fan of how the MCU treats Peter Parker as Iron Man's sidekick, Iron Man Jr., which is not what Spider-Man should be. But the one thing that makes me more interested about this movie is when they announce the castings of it. When they feature that Jamie Foxx is going to return as Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but not the same look, not the blue look, but a different look, but it's played by the same actor. I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting. Until then, when they announced, oh, Benedict Cumberbatch will reprise his role as Doctor Strange. Oh, we're using our made-up names. Then I'm Spider-Man. So, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange interacted with each other in Avengers Infinity War, and even a bunch of times in the comic books and some cartoons as well, like the 90s animated series and the Ultimate Spider-Man Disney XD cartoon as well. But what's also interesting about it, I'm like, wait a minute. So you got Jamie Foxx's Electro and Doctor Strange, and let's not forget, Doctor Strange is getting a sequel after the third Spider-Man movie. It is directed by Sam Raimi, who gives us the Spider-Man trilogy featuring Tobey Maguire. But now, after we hear those rumors of, we see the castings of Jamie Foxx's Electro, Doctor Strange returning in the Spider-Man movie, now we get to hear that Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2 is gonna be in this movie. And I'm like, what? What is going on? Until then, we get more official confirmations. Andrew Garfield from The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 is coming back to reprise his role as Spider-Man. Same thing for Kristen Dunst as Mary J. Watson. Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy to be part of it. I mean, she's pregnant, but she could still sneak in for a couple scenes. And the biggest one, Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Even though his career is dead, he's been blacklisted by Hollywood, and the studios try to convince him, like, we need you as Spider-Man. And Tobey's like, I want that money. I missed the part where that's my problem. You will give me this role when you fix this damn door. I'm just kidding, but in a way that they're trying their best to convince Tobey Maguire to play the role of Spider-Man. Because this Spider-Man movie is supposed to be like a multiverse type of film. And it makes sense because during the Disney Investor Day that features Kevin Feige, Marvel Studio President Kevin Feige mentions that WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness is going to be a multiverse story arc, and it definitely makes a lot of sense from how it's being set up. WandaVision is coming to Disney Plus on January 15th. The upcoming Spider-Man 3rd movie is going to come out in December 17, 2021. So that's 11 months from now, and we got to wait that long for it. There's no trailers yet. They're still filming production. They're still trying to keep it silenced just because they don't want to give away too many spoilers where fans are going to leak it online, to leak it on Twitter, on movie, because this next Spider-Man movie has got to be one of the biggest leak teas in movie history in a long time, and I'm fully excited for that. So that's why I'm choosing that as number one, because loving Spider-Man when I was a kid and seeing Tobey, Andrew, Tom, meeting all these characters is such an unexpected childhood dream come true. It's a little too much, but I'm really excited for that. So that's why that's my number one. So yeah, let's go to my top 5 again. Number 5, Uncharted. Number 4, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Number 3, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Number 2, Space Jam, A New Legacy. And number 1, Spider-Man 3. So those are my top 5 movies of 2021. If you want to tell me your top 5 most anticipated movies of 2021, let me know down in the comments. And speaking of that pop collection, that will be my next video for this upcoming week, and it's going to be totally completely unexpected since I update the changes in my room. And those are my most anticipated movies of 2021. If you guys agree or disagree with me, let me know down in the comments what are your most anticipated movies of 2021. And that'll be all for today's video. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care now. Bye bye then. 2020, here we come.